What is Ulysses, Jeanne d'Arcy, and the Alchemist Knight? Is it interesting? Well, I'd say the latter. It's not really that interesting, at least for me. And honestly, Ulysses, Jeanne d'Arcy is like a harem anime, basically. It's also taking quite a few liberties, which normally is fine, but it took way too many liberties just to be okay for me to to enjoy it. Now I was like I'm pretty much a big fan of Joan of Arc. I usually call her that, and I find her to be a very admirable person. Excuse me, I might be a little bit too loud. And I find her to be a very admirable person. I mean, she literally did things that should have been impossible for women of that time. She literally became a leader, like an officer leading an army to unite to help unite France. She didn't live long enough to see it completely united, but she did live long enough to see the king crowned, which was uh, what she said at the time was her goal given to her by God. The Catholics say they don't even know her. They don't even know how she how she even come to know who the king was, because she just like walked right up to where the prince was hiding and suddenly knew who he was when no one really should have. He should just look like some random guy, you know, sitting around, probably one of your uh maybe your average noble or something. It would be like extremely difficult to tell if he was the prince because there were no pictures of him at the time. So she comes up and says, uh, God has sent me to uh, help you claim your throne or something like that. And, you know, things went off from there. And this was a village girl. She was just one of those village girls, off on some farm somewhere, uh, probably waiting to be married to the next man. And she became a hero. Like some She became a hero to France. Now, not everybody supported her. Some considered her a demon. Some really wanted to hang her, but in the end, she gained a lot of powerful supporters, like serious support from the king, and serious support from the church. The church, for crying out loud. Now, Japan decided that they wanted to make a depiction in their own way, take some liberties, which is fine. Like I've seen some interesting liberties, like the ambitions of Nobuna, which is like about a guy who gets sent to the past, but the twist, all of the past characters are women, which was interesting. So I decided to take a look at it, and the history was fairly accurate. It's supposed to be. It's not really taking things seriously. It's supposed to be a little good fun and all that. So I was like, a few episodes. I took a look and was like, it's not that bad. The music was nice. The characters were convincing. And there's good comedy in it. It really wasn't that bad. But then you look at Ulysses, Jeanne d'Arcy, and the Alchemist Knight. uh, it's about an alchemist, and obviously alchemy is, for some strange reason at the time, banned because it was pre-Christian origins. Why don't you just ban the Old Testament then? Jeez, Catholicism was weird back then. But yeah, alchemy was banned due to some superstition against it. And to be fair, there was a bit of superstition. There were some alchemists who had this crazy idea to, you know, create uh to create immortality and stuff like that. And it's like, it might be one of the main reasons why it was banned. Like, people, I'm pretty sure the church would not have banned brooms if it was knowing that it was pre-Christian origins, but it's still pretty dumb. So the alchemist is some, I guess, a noble who is trying to become a knight, and there's a bunch of women there, which I assume are uh, supposed whose historical figures are supposed to be male characters, because there's a very familiar character named Lahir who's a female character, and I'll get to that later. But so this noble who's trying to be a good knight and all that, he's total failure of a knight. You know, one of your typical out anime characters where, you know, they're just really the underdog in everything, and his only strong suit is alchemy. Uh, and alchemy is hated. It's like, no, that's an interesting concept. I mean, alchemy is quite useful. It did advance science a bit, even though it did have some superstitious uh, outlines. But then again, this is like really early on. People didn't really understand anything, and they only had the ability to guess and test, make experiments on those guesses. So he has this bunch of girls who apparently like him. There's this woman who's all dressed up all pretty, like, who's a noble. I don't really know much about her. There's this other noble who's like uh whose town is about to be raided and could be captured. It is eventually captured, and her father decides, you know what, everything's going to be fine. We're going to be we're going to join the English in their fight, which I appreciate that part, because there were French who were turncoats who decided to aid the English. There were literally Frenchmen who were loyal to the English. Um, so that's something that I can appreciate. But for some strange reason, I could not get, I couldn't really feel a connection with these characters. Like, why do we keep changing scenes before we can get to know him? Like, literally, there's this one scene where he's with these three other girls, and one of them's a strong and capable knight. Is a girl, apparently. Which honestly kind of annoys me. I feel like Joan of Arc would be better as something really darker, because, maybe I should just continue. Like, there's this girl who's apparently he really likes, is a knight and very capable, and she's like supposed to lead an army to defend her realm, because her little brother is absolute garbage at anything, apparently, and they send her to go fight. She loses. I mean, did I get ahead of myself? I did. Yeah, but they send her to go fight against an army and she loses. Somewhere in the middle of the show, she's supposed to go with him and two other girls, and they're getting something that has to do with alchemy, like a stone. No, actually, they're looking for fairies. And fairies here are shown to be cute little characters, innocent little things, which is strange. I think there's like different stories about little elves. Uh, some say they're harmless. Some stories about elves kidnapping children to the forest, which honestly, that's another missed opportunity. Why couldn't they have done like little fairies that kidnap children like who wander off into the forest? That would have been fun. That would have been like a fun twist in there, like showing something like that. But that didn't happen. So these little cute fairies, the Catholic Church is trying to kill them all for some strange reason, uh, because they're considered evil. Literally, the Catholic Church is so weird. They would see I swear they would see a monkey and consider it unholy. I bet they've seen monkeys before, but they had no idea what they are. Probably thought they were, when they first saw it, probably thought they were demons in order to kill demon, kill it. So yeah, these fairies like get hunted and killed. But they've only said that so far. Um, it's strange though. The music really didn't match the undertones of the thing. We're supposed to find them as likable, but literally the alchemist is like boring to me. He's so boring. He wants to learn stuff more about alchemy, and he wants to become immortal for some reason, which is uh it's extremely unoriginal, at least to me. There may be people who are new to anime, but immortality's like so overused. But yeah, that's basically what some alchemists like would go after. And this old man says, no, you should like appreciate life. Don't pursue alchemy for immortality. It was the guy that the alchemist went to. He's like he was the master. So the young alchemist like, yeah, I want to learn, and the alchemist just gives him books like, here, read that, go away. Which was kind of funny, but he was the only interesting character in the first episode. I don't think we see him much later. So there's supposed to be this emotional point where the knight, the girl knight, I can't remember her name because she was just that uninteresting. So she has to go and fight enemy, and uh, the the alchemist is supposed to be distraught over this, but it was incredibly unconvincing. And the music was incredibly unconvincing. It didn't even sound dramatic to me. It just sounded like it sounded like it's supposed to be slightly sad but also kind of happy. And it didn't make sense, that music there. It just completely turned it off. And the character just didn't really convince me, and I didn't understand enough about the knight, because they didn't do anything to convince me that she was interesting or she was likable. She's just your typical female, uh, female strong character, and that's literally the only thing that's her good trait. She's like supposed to be a smart leader, uh, and well, just things like that. So England, the English, who were supposed to have turned to Catholicism at the time, decided to use black magic. And maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But literally, it's even in England that wouldn't really be considered right. Like you can see the soldiers who are going against it because there are bad things said about the magicians in England. Like, but then again, they could have just been rumors to speak against them. But what the magic stuff they did, you can see the stars clearly. You know, they're doing black magic because of that star thing, like you see on Full Metal Alchemist and other things like that. They're dealing in something that they shouldn't do. It's like heretical, and they use it to defeat the French army, where the female knight was leading and she loses. And it was the most like uninteresting battle I have ever seen. I swear they did not understand how to make it look interesting. It's like even the music made it seem like it was your everyday type of battle. Type of battle. It's like as if you were walking around in the city on a normal day. That's how the music made it feel like. It was so. It made it so interesting and even harder to make you feel sympathetic for the knight character that we barely even had time to have a connection to. And honestly, it's well, I guess it is hard to make a character in the first episode to be interesting, but this was just plain lazy. Like it feels like lazy story writing to me. So yeah, the alchemist decides that he wants to summon a fairy. It wasn't a demon. I guess honestly it would have been, I hate to say it, but it would have been more interesting if he just summoned a demon and sold a soul, because I was literally expecting that, not some hot woman, little fairy who does, who advises him and stuff. It's literally a turnoff when you don't see a demon. To be fair, the anime would just show a succubus since it's a harem anime, but it would have been interesting if he just sold his soul to a demon just to save his friend. Even though I don't know why they care about each other, and it's supposed to show this in episode 2, which I skipped through because it was boring, and the I did not like the voice actors. And so we get to episode 2, which really shows how much these people care about European history. Like, I hear that people hate, that the Last Samurai was a complete and utter insult to the culture and history of the Japanese. And I didn't really know that because I never asked the Japanese how they felt, and I didn't really know enough at the time about Japanese history. It it was supposed to be serious and somehow considered true, even though it wasn't. Like it was slammed by critics and people, you know, just Urinal people as like completely offensive. And you know, now that I look at this, yeah, I can really understand. I can understand that people in Japan if people were in Japan were really insulted. But I really don't know because I didn't check it or ask. But this honestly, this was just this episode was, I guess it made it things more interesting, but it was just plain insulting. Like it's as if they're literally shitting on the entire history of Europe, and like it's as if they honestly they probably thought Joan of Arc was not interesting. Like some people called her a crybaby because she wept for enemies that she led her armies to kill, which I thought to be admirable because, you know, it's good to actually care about your enemies. A lot of times we like to dehumanize them. She didn't, you know, and I just found that to be a good trait of hers. But in this anime, uh, she's actually shown to be a heretic, because, and I don't care that she was hanging out with fairies. She did hang out with fairies, like she was friends to the fairies and stuff, which was fine. I didn't really care. But uh, in one of the scenes, she was she was committing a and people who don't understand it a bit about religion, she was um praying to an idol, and don't and with the fairies, and she was had this fire up, she was praying to something, and she was throwing fruit in a fire. And in case you think how I don't know, it's literally confirmed that she was in the anime by the alchemist, that she was praying to a spirit. That is the opposite of what Joan of Arc was. She was a very devout Christian, and not only was she a very devout Christian, I'm just going to leave it there. She was a devout Christian, and the thing that annoyed me was that she was also using fruit as a sacrifice. Why? Which also confirmed that she wasn't making sacrifices to God. Because in case you didn't know, the in the Old Testament, it was required. We'll go in as Genesis. There was with Cain and Abel. Abel raised goats and Cain raised fruit. Now I know that in the Bible, uh, the God wanted them to eat some fruit, but he also wanted them to put sacrifices up to sacrifice goats for him at the altar. Joan of Arc was using fruit and praying to a spirit. Honestly, they did, anime certain anime shows didn't even do this to Nobuna. They literally kept her ambitions stuck there, but and they made some convincing things to keep some of her character from changing as a result of the main character. Here on this anime, in Ulysses Jeanne d'Arc, she's literally shown to be a heretic, and they keep showing her doing heretical things that just Like literally, it's as if they're trying to uh, just piss off anyone that has actually read about Joan of Arc, and the one who was literally the hero of France. Is honestly, I find her to be. I would have found her to be a much interesting character alone, and as just showing up to the king. It could have just made the king the freaking harem protagonist instead of the alchemist, because the alchemist is so uninteresting. Crying out loud. But no, you had to have an uninteresting alchemist and portray a huge historical figure, and put everything about her and put her as the opposite. And this is the weird thing. Like later on, they meet up with Lahir. She's like a Catholic. She wanted to kill the alchemist because she thought he was she thought he was a mage or a wizard, because magic was banned, because it was considered worship of the devil. And yeah, Lahir was a girl, which I honestly think was a very big missed opportunity, because Lahir, if you read the history about him, there's a description of him like being a brute of a man, and like he's not a noble. He's literally like rough, and you know a great commander. And honestly, I feel like he would have been a great support character as a male, like a great male support character for the alchemist. It would have made this anime loads more interesting, because I find his character as a male in history, his depictions, I find it to be much more interesting than this character, because she's literally another badass warrior woman, who's also I guess a lesbian, uh, but literally just another female character who's like a warrior, who's strong and stuff. Come on, I swear she would just been much more interesting portrayed as this like manly man flexing. He's like 6 foot tall, and he's literally really supportive of the alchemist. Is like, oh, I think you're a great guy, and you meet Joan of Arc. Oh, I think you're a great woman. It's like he's supporting these guys, and he's like, oh look, it's the enemy. Come, let us fight. Let's destroy the enemy and bathe in their blood. And it would have been great to see Joan of Arc just like, please be gentle against the enemy because they're awesome. Honestly, that just sounds like wussy, but and she would have she probably would have happily fought. I wouldn't mind her holding a sword, honestly, because she wouldn't. I guess she wouldn't really be all that interesting in the show if she wasn't holding a sword, because in history she never held a sword. She just led her troops with a flag, and like literally led them to victory after victory after victory. It's pretty cool when you think about it. But in the anime, they took, she uses a weapon, but the way they do it is just so disgusting. Like literally, she's supposed to be this gentle, caring woman, but then the alchemist does something bad and makes her this psychopath every time she I guess takes this potion. It's the Ulysses thing, it destroys all her ambitions, makes her arrogant and evil, like possessed by a demon, you could say. And she just loves killing people every time she gets possessed or something. And honestly, I just thought that was disgusting and disrespectful to the history. Like, it's very clear looking at this that there's just no real respect here. I mean, I would have preferred the creators of the ambitions of Nobunaga Well, I need to figure out who made it. Let's see. Yeah, the publishers were TV Tokyo, because at least their stories actually made sense and tried, and really wasn't that insulting. They had fun with it. They, took some liberties, but they made some things accurate, made certain personalities, slightly different, but not too far from how they usually acted. They added some ninjas. It was just your run-of-the-mill fun anime that's actually pretty interesting. And they didn't do anything to uh, try to make characters look so far and so crazy different. Well, they did, but not crazy different to the point that it was just they weren't the characters described in history at all. Because Nobuna, she still had the ambitions like Nobunaga, and other characters, I presume, also had the same type of ambitions and such. But in this one, Joan of Arc, it's like or Ulysses, for crying out loud. They literally did not care about the history. It's like they took the names of these characters. It's like they looked at the wiki page. Joan of Arc led an army, defeated the English, and helped crown the King of France. And that was probably it. They probably just winged it for everything. Didn't bother to learn about who Joan of Arc was at all. They looked at Lahir, thought he was an uninteresting. I swear, for love of God, give me. I there really needs to be a good anime of Joan of Arc. Like I did like Drifters a little bit better because it what if it was a what if scenario. What if the heroes were evil? And it was fine. I didn't particularly like Joan of Arc being portrayed as evil, but they did it in a way that made sense. And it was also, it was a what if type of deal. And so I thought it was, it's fine. It's honestly, I really really admire Joan of Arc and her history. She's like she literally uh, uh is considered a saint, and I guess you could say that she's an inspiration towards women because she's literally one of the first soldiers acknowledged by the Catholic Church, and uh, is I guess you could call it progress for women at the time because I mean, granted, there weren't very many women who fought later on, but it's like it's a step, you could say. Here, it's like every knight's a woman, and uh, most of the evil knights are bad. Honestly, it's mostly because it's a harem thing. So I'm like, all right, the heroes of France are all women, including Joan of Arc was always a woman, but Lahir is a woman. Very big missed opportunity. Seriously, honestly, I don't know why you did that. And I guess a lot of the other historical figures are women. The king is probably going to be a woman. Yeah, honestly, and I really wouldn't have minded it if they had actually made it look interesting, and maybe people would learn things along the way. But you don't learn anything. All you know is England is attacking France, and that's about it. Just because literally they completely change everything about Joan of Arc in this anime. It's it's dumb. I honestly would prefer the publisher people of TV Tokyo, because this is just pure utter garbage for the sake of having an anime protagonist who's also pure utter garbage at everything. His only strong suit is alchemy, and that's about it. He's literally boring. It was nice to see some of the unknown characters. Like, there's this, I guess, this village leader, or was he the priest? I'm not sure, but he's like, he literally wept for Joan, Joan, and which was a nice change of pace. Normally, you see in an anime some village characters, if they see someone become a demon stuff, they would go off and kill him. But this person was like, how am I supposed to tell Joan's parents that Joan ended up getting possessed by a demon? And the villagers literally felt sorry for her. They didn't uh, necessarily show her with hate. They did show some fear, but they felt sorry for her. And I think that was a good thing to show in the anime, because honestly, that's the only thing here. It made the this villager more interesting than all these other characters like Joan of Arc and the alchemist, and even Lahir, because Lahir wasn't really that interesting to me, honestly. I swear, I swear, it could. I still say it's a missed opportunity. Seriously. And honestly, it, just just gotta say, if you're gonna watch it, don't watch it expecting to learn something. Honestly, you shouldn't watch anime period expecting to learn something. But when I but on the ambitions of New Buna, you actually do learn some things, which is interesting because that normally doesn't happen in an anime like that. Ugh, I swear, the Fate series did stories better than this by making their characters women, which was weird because King Arthur is a girl, his son is a girl, and somehow he gave birth to him, and she's supposed to be his father. And that the Fate series is better than watching this garbage show of an anime. It's like literally, I believe it was just made only for the purpose of spiting people, just to insult. I guess to insult the French. Or I'm not even sure if all the French know all that much about Joan of Arc, but she, honestly, I consider her extremely iconic and influential women's, like something that women could look up to of that time, because uh, it's really rare for women to be allowed to become soldiers in war. It's like not something that was done, and it's just it's miss opportunity after miss opportunity. It becomes a harem anime. It's like it's supposed to be your happy-go-lucky thing, and honestly, it was boring. That's all it was. Just plain boring. And the only characters that were interesting to me were just the care, the characters in the background, and that alchemist guy that was teaching the boring alchemist. eh, it's weird. It's not even that's not even a good thing in my opinion. Sometimes if they find characters that are more interesting than the main characters, that can be fine if the story and the characters are good enough and, interesting enough to look at. But they did everything about this anime completely wrong. Like, I wouldn't have even minded the harem anime. I wouldn't even have minded some of the characters being women, except for Lahair, because Lahair is awesome. You could have just made it your harem and hell, Joan of Arc, could have been this pure woman who just, is learning more about men and stuff because she's got to hang out with men a lot. And, could have been, more accurate to how she was portrayed in history. But instead, they decide not to. But no, it's just, kind of nothing's accurate to the history of what happened here. I swear, it's it's just like completely and utterly stupid. Yeah, well, I'm done venting. Like, I really had to vent about this thing. It was just so stupid. I if you want to see something that does a harem anime like this right, you should really do the ambitions of Oda Nobunaga. It was definitely much more interesting, much less insulting. Keeps the characters a bit more accurate, except making them women, and taking liberties to make them look likable. This one did not take liberties to make characters look likable. It just made them look boring. Lahir is like the most interesting character of the bunch, and that's really not saying much. But yeah, that's it. I'm done venting here. If Just have a good day.